Hey folks, my name is Adrian and I am a local guide formerly based in Manchester for the past 15 years, but recently I just moved back to my home country of Malaysia. Before I go on with this video presentation, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Mark for inviting me to be the guest judge for this amazing photo competition. Mark's a great guy and I've known him for many years and he takes some exceptionally beautiful shots. And obviously, he's also a very talented and passionate architect as well. He's been super kind as well in supporting me when I used to organize photo walks in Manchester. So Mark wanted me to choose a single name to be the winner of this photo competition, but those who know me will also know that I don't do things that simple. I always tend to go overboard with my response. So Mark, unfortunately, I'm not giving you a single name, but I'm giving you a full video presentation. So for all of you there, I hope you all had a really great time in Stockport. You've invested your time and energy to attend a photo walk and also to take part in this photo competition. So I wanted to pay back in kind all the effort that you put in by doing this video presentation and also just showing you the selection process of how I came to choose my favorite photos and also how I ultimately came to choose the winner. And hopefully that you will learn something along the way and improve your photography skills. So massive disclaimer, I am not a professional photographer. I'm just a regular user. I do most of my photography on my mobile phone. This is a Pixel 3 XL, a Google phone basically. And I haven't shot on a digital SLR for a very, very long time now. So yeah, exclusively I'm a mobile photographer. So what you hear in this video presentation is basically my personal opinions and also my personal preferences on how I like the photo to turn out. So you may disagree with me on certain subjective stuff, but some of the basic principles that I'll be talking about are basically agreed upon by most photographers, so hopefully you learn something useful from this whole video presentation. So without much further ado, let's get the ball rolling because we have quite a bit to cover. So for this photo competition, the brief that I was given is that there are 4 topics and you are meant to submit a single photo for each of the topics. And the 4 topics are building, detail, construction materials, and streetscape. So my personal interpretation of it is that a building photo is obviously just a photo that shows a building. A detail will be a photo that emphasizes a certain aspect of a building. And construction material is a photo that highlights material that's being used in building a building. And the streetscape is obviously just a street scene of Stockport. So what am I looking for when I choose my favorite photos? Well, I'm looking for good composition. So I'm looking at the foreground and background elements in the photo, whether you place the object in your photo in a good location, and whether you have good cropping. And besides that, I'm also looking for straight horizon lines, unless you're going for those artistic shots and you go crazy with those lines. Besides those horizon lines, I'm also looking at perspective lines to make sure that you're making full use of it if there is the opportunity to do so. A good perspective line will lead your eye to the object in your photo, so if you use it well, it can turn out really, really awesome. Besides those, I'm also looking for good color balance, good lighting, and also if you follow the rule of thirds. So if you do not know the rule of thirds, you can search them on the internet because I'm not going to go into it. It's going to take too long to go into it, and this is going to be a long video presentation anyway. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for submitting your photos. There are some really, really good gems in there, and also there may be a few that could do with some encouragement and some guidance on how to improve on their shots. So majority of you submitted the photos as is, as in there is no editing to it. But I personally always edit my photos, so I do some post-editing work. And basically, I use my apps on my phone or sometimes the apps on the computer to do my editing work. And basically, like I said, I'm not a good photographer, but I have a vision in my mind of what the photo I want to turn out. And so I work towards that and try to bring out the best elements in my photo. So I'm going to go through each of the 4 topics. And I'm going to show you the favorite photos that I've selected for those 4 topics. And I'll show you and explain why I think they're good and also where I think you can improve on. And besides that, I've also taken quite a bit of time to edit the photos that you've done. So I could show you the before and after of your photo. and hopefully you'll be able to see that there are some improvements made. So don't discount post-editing work. They can be really useful. And obviously, it just depends on how much you want to put effort into your photos. But if you're really wanting to go for it, post-editing work can really bring out the good stuff in your photos. Okay, so let's start off with the building topic. So in the building topic here, I'm going to switch over to the presentation and show you what I'm looking at. So the first photo that we have here is obviously of the market hall in Stockport. And what I really like about this photo is that if you look at it, the composition is really well done. The lighting is a bit flat, but that can't be helped because it was a cloudy day, as you can see. And whenever you get a cloudy day, your photos tend to be quite flat. But in terms of composition, I really like it. So what I've done is as well is that I've drawn on the photo the rule of third lines, which you can see here. And basically what it does is that it shows you where all the elements in the photos are lining up to the rule of thirds. So you can see here a couple of people here. I think that's Mark in there. You can see his bald spot. Sorry, Mark. But you can see Mark there and obviously another attendee of the photo walk lining up to this rule of third lines here. And you can see the market hall, the majority of the building is also within this area here. So it's a well-balanced shot. There's quite a balanced space at the top and also a balanced space in the bottom. And you can also see the balanced space on the left and right-hand side. So when I did the editing work for this, I didn't actually have to do any cropping or adjust the photo much. And also all the horizon lines are straight, all the beams and the pillars in the building are also straight. So again, no adjustment there. And this is what the post-edited work is like. So the one on the left-hand side is the before, and the one on the right-hand side is the after picture. So what I've done in here is that I've improved the contrast in the photo, and I've also adjusted the color balance on it. So what you see is that previously you have quite a grayish palette in a previous photo, and I've adjusted that to bring out the whites in the I don't know what that building structure is called, but bring out the whites in the paintwork. And obviously there's a bit more color pop in the red and yellow, and the sky now has a bluish tint and so a little bit more dramatic. But other than that, you know, it's better contrast and a brighter pop to it. The other thing that I tend to do as well is that I always tend to use vignetting. So vignette is basically when you adjust the outer tone in your photo. So in this case, I've made it a bit darker in the outer side. And again, it's kind of more of a very subtle treatment that causes the viewer to focus on the center of your photo. So basically the outside is darker and the inside is brighter. So again, your eyes tend to focus on the center of the photo. So I kind of always use vignetting, and I think it's a really good technique. Obviously, you don't go overboard with it because you could do too much. It can look really, really weird. Also, I just forgotten to mention this, but whenever you do any post-editing work, you want to make sure that you're not doing too much, that it kind of looks a little bit fake. You can do the color pop and you kind of make it stand out a little bit more, but don't go overboard with it. And also, obviously, try not to introduce any noise in your photos if you're doing any post-editing work. So the next photo that I really like from this topic of building is this one here. So this is the Robinson Brewery. It's a really nice shot. Again, it's well composed. But if you notice this at the edge here, this brickwork here is not parallel to the edge of the photo. Again, so if you look at all the lines here, all the vertical lines, they're not exactly straight. They're quite skewed. So in my post-editing work, all I did basically was just do some rotation and also to correct the perspective for the skew lines. And what you notice is that this tower here would have been slightly better if it was in line with this rule of third lines. Okay, this one here is fine. The horizontal alignment is fine, but it could do with a little bit of a nudge to get this tower lined up to this. So the concept behind rule of thirds is that if you take a photo and you have the subject dead right in the center, it can be okay depending on what type of photo it is. If it's a portraiture, it usually is in the center, it works well, but it can also be quite boring. So to provide some dynamic element to your photo, photographers tend to align the object to the rule of third lines. So either you choose an intersecting point or you just line it up along the lines. And it kind of makes the photo more dynamic, and it works, trust me. So next time you go out there and you're having a photo walk, take some photos and play around with taking photos where your subject is in the middle, and also when the subject is following the rule of thirds. And then you start to notice that actually the ones with rule of thirds tend to look a little bit more exciting and look a little bit more better as well. So this is the post-edited work. Again, as you can see here, the sky is slightly darker, added more dramatic elements to it. And I made the breakwork here pop up a little bit more as well. So not a lot of changes in here. Just play around the colors, play around the contrast and brightness. And also I adjusted the rotation and the perspective lines on it and did a slight crop. The next photo is this one. Again, it's really cool. I really like it. Obviously, the original photo itself pops up a lot. The contrast and the colors on it is a little bit too saturated in my personal opinion. But I really like the blue skies. I really like the red breakwork. So what I did was that, if I just jump ahead here, I kind of toned down the redness slightly, and also on the blue side. So I desaturated the photo slightly. And what you notice is that I shifted the focus to just this center building. And the reason for that is that if we go one slide back, if I show the rule of thirds here, what you notice is that this building here, it's kind of towards the right-hand side, it's biased to the right-hand side rather than the center. So kind of what I did was that I just shifted the focus to keep the building, the main building in the center, because we didn't really need to have all these elements at the side here. It doesn't really add to the photo. And another thing that you might notice as well is that, again, the perspective line is not quite straight, especially look in this area here. You can see that the windows are not lining up in parallel to the edge of the photo. So what I did in my photo editing software is that I corrected that skew lines and straightened everything out, and it kind of looks a lot better. In my opinion, it looks a lot better. Sorry if you don't agree with this, but yeah, to me it looks a lot better. It kind of looks like a postcard that you see, you know, in tourist centers and stuff like that. But it really shows a really good shot of the building. Another thing that I want to mention as well, let's just see if I got this slide. Yeah, got it right. So when you take a picture of a building, there's obviously, in a sense, two ways of doing it. You can take a photo directly in front of it, like in this case here. So you want to get the photo of the building directly in front of you, and it's flat, and you want to get all the perspective lines as straight as possible. As in, there's no perspective lines. You want to get all the elements as straight as possible and parallel. And this works really well. And obviously, sometimes you can also take the photo at an angle. But what you notice is that if you take an angle, it becomes a lot more complicated and a lot more challenging to get the right composition of photos. So I wanted to show you some other photos that were submitted as well in the photo competition. And all of this were taken at a slight angle. So the top photo and the photo on the right-hand side, obviously, you can quite see that the person stood to the side and took a photo of the building. And although it shows, I guess, the structure of the building, and it shows it's not a flat front, it also makes it really hard to capture the whole building in the process. So if you look at the left photo and the top photo, there's an unfortunate crop on the roof. And it's really hard. So unless you stand further back and make sure that you capture it properly, it's going to be quite difficult to get the whole building in it. So I will obviously recommend that if you do a front capture like this, just make sure that you stand far enough back so that all your lines are parallel to each other and you minimize any skewing on it. And here's the next photo that we're looking at under the topic of building. So this is already a post-edited shot. It's pretty nicely composed, but I do find that it's a little bit too dark for me. Again, it depends on your personal preference. Some people like a black and white that's really dark. I kind of prefer a black and white that is kind of in the middle ground and neutral side. And as long as you get a good color, not color pop, but a good contrast pop on it, it would work well, but you don't necessarily have to go so dark on it. So kind of what I did was just to brighten up the image slightly. So you can see in this central area here, especially this bit here, I find that it's a bit too dark, so I kind of brighten it up in this section here. Other than that, the sky is slightly darker just to make it a little bit more dramatic. And I didn't really do any crop because you can see there's not much. First of all, because of the original crop of the photo, there's not a lot I can do with it. But also at the same time, the elements in the photo, the clock tower, church tower, sorry, and the antenna, they kind of more or less lined up to the rule of third lines. So I did try to play around with this and try to do different crops, but it turns out that actually there's not much you can do with it, and it was already lined up to as good as it can possibly get. The one thing I have to say though is that just be careful in this corner here. I'm not sure what that bit is. It may be a finger, but it's being shown in the picture there. So just be careful whenever you do any photography. Just make sure that your fingers are not being shown in there as well. And again, it's like we can try to avoid that because it's an element that really is quite a bright spot, so it kind of draws your eye to the corner. And really, you want to make sure that as a photographer, you want to draw the viewer's eye to the center or towards the main object, which is the church tower here, not towards the corner here. So when you do any editing work, try to do it that way. Try to crop it out if you can. I don't think I've made any changes here. No, I've left it to this. I was kind of lazy. Let's put it this way. But yeah, so I hope you do like the lighter tone black and white. Again, it's very, very subjective. This is one of those where I was really challenging myself and like, did I actually make an improvement on this or did I make it worse? I'm not sure. So it's really difficult. But there you go. Those are the 4 photos I've chosen from the building topic. The next topic is detail. And the very first photo is going to be this one here. So I really like this photo quite a bit. And again, it's well composed and it's got very, very interesting details to it. Obviously, you can see the pillar here and again, I'm not an architect person and I don't know what you call this thing, but that thingy-majig structure, that structure over there, it's all very interesting. But again, you have to look at the lines that's forming. It's not quite straight and parallel. So there's a bit of a skew involved there. And this one's actually quite a difficult one because I tried to edit the skew out, but it was really, really challenging. So I'm not sure whether there's any other distortion in there, whether there's a lens distortion, or maybe that the building itself is just that way and it's not quite parallel. So sometimes you can't help it and sometimes you cannot correct for it. But what you notice as well once you put on the rule of third lines is that this pillar here, you can either focus it to be on the center of your photo, or you can put it aligned to the rule of third line. So for my edited work, I actually shifted the pillar towards the rule of thirds. And I did a slightly tighter crop. And I wanted to maintain the yellow bit here because I think the yellow really makes it pop up quite well. Yeah, so I kind of enjoyed it that way. So it's a little bit darker. I'm not sure whether I did a good job here. It looks like the contrast is a bit too high for me. I think I prefer the original one here. But other than that, I just kind of corrected the composition slightly. In this next shot here, again, I don't know my architectural stuff. Don't have a clue what you call this thing, that acorn thing. This shot is actually quite interesting. I really like the contrast in the white foreground and the black background. But if you notice in the black background, you can see the windows are also, the perspective lines is not quite there. So there is a recurring theme here. Always check your perspective lines. Always check whether your photo's horizon lines are straight. And make sure that everything's okay. Obviously, certain times you cannot adjust for it as in taking the photo itself because you're either too near or so you had to go further back. But if you go too far back, you need a zoom lens to get a close-up shot of this. So it's really hard to do it. So that's why post-editing work really comes in really helpful to adjust and fix that. So the composition in here, again, I don't need to make any adjustments to it because it's very well composed. And so in my edited work, this is the final result. It's a slightly tighter crop, mainly because when I did the adjustment for the perspective lines and straighten it out, I had to do some minor crop to get rid of all the gaps that was generated. And also I increased the contrast on this. So the whites are whiter, the blacks are blacker, and I just wanted to really stand out here, and I wanted the dark areas, the background, to be darker. And that's kind of the finished product. The next shot is this very, very interesting photo. So this is very different from the previous ones. This is actually doing a negative space focus. So the negative space is basically this area here, right? So normally if you were to take this photo, most photographers would focus on the details here. So they would have this in the center of their photo. But this creative photographer decided to focus on the negative space. So it makes it a very, very intriguing photo because sometimes negative space can work really, really well. And I think it does here. But what you notice again is that the lines are not parallel. And this bit could possibly be shifted slightly to center it a little bit better. You can see it here. Again, once you have the rule of third lines showing up, it makes it really clear whether it's dead center or where you want to align it. So I would highly recommend that you have a look at your phone or your camera, and if there's an option to turn on the grid lines, turn it on. And you see most likely the option to turn on the rule of third lines, and they're really, really helpful to guide you in composing your shot. The edited work here is this one. So before and after. And kind of what I did here, I kind of went against my normal rules, which was trying to make it look normal. In this case, I really wanted the color to pop. So I really, really increased the saturation on the photo. So this bit here, you may say, hey, it doesn't look natural anymore. And yeah, it doesn't. But I really like the colors in here, and I really like that the patterns really, really stand out here. And I really like the yellow bit here, the mole slash fungus slash whatever it is. It just looks really nice. And the reason why I made the color pop up so much is that if you turn the photo around 90 degrees and put it in a landscape mode, I think this photo works really well as an abstract kind of shot. And if you wanted to print this out on a huge canvas and make it your feature wall, put it on your feature wall, this just works really, really well. I mean, it's got such amazing patterns on it, and the vibrancy in the colors, yellows and reds, just makes it stand out really, really well. And the lines in there as well just kind of breaks it all really nicely. So I think this photo looks so much better landscape-wise than it is in a portrait fashion. So don't worry too much sometimes when you, obviously the pillar itself is in a portrait orientation, but sometimes you can be a little bit creative and you can turn your photos around to make it come up a slightly different way. And the next photo that we have is this one here. This is another great shot. I always like to take pictures of doors. I know it sounds really weird, but if you go to, let's say, a European country and, you know, some of the old towns, they have some really, really awesome doors, like metal doors, and they got like crazy ornate door handles and door knockers and just elements on the doors that's just so beautiful and adds so much character to the door. And I love taking photos of those. And in this photo, what works really well is that you have all the plants around it. If it was just a door and a plain wall, it wouldn't have worked. But in this case, the plants really help to frame the door like amazingly well. The only downside, obviously, is that the door is kind of bland. So if there was something ornate on it, if there was a number on it, it was just some paintwork on it, anything, it would have made it a little bit more exciting. But other than that, you know, I think the framing in here is done really well. Again, when I did my post-editing work on it, I didn't have to change much. I just did some minor tweaks in the rotation and the perspective and skew lines. And I also made the color pop a lot on the plans. Here you go. Are you ready for this? Color pop. It's going to be really bright. There you go. So that green obviously is not quite the natural green that you would normally see. But again, I just love the plants that we have here. And I just wanted to take the green out and show it as much as possible. And by also increasing the contrast on the wooden door, sorry, you can tease out all the grains in it. And I think it adds a little bit more character to it than just a slightly boring looking door. Okay, so again, post-editing work comes in really handy to just bring those really good elements out from your photo. And the next photo is this one here. So this one is quite interesting because I couldn't decide whether the photo would have been better. Obviously, I think you could improve by taking a step or two back and capturing more because this is such a tight area here, this bit here. I think you could improve it by giving yourself a little bit more margin and space. In case something goes wrong, in case you need to rotate the photo, you want to give yourself enough space and clearances at the top. So that just feels a little bit tight. So I would recommend you take a step or two back. But with this shot, I couldn't decide whether the shot should be obviously as it is, like this, to show the full door, or whether you should take a landscape shot and just focus on this bit here. Because I think this element up here is slightly more interesting than the element down below here. Because of just the shapes and lines and the stonework in it. It's just really, really good. So that's another thing that you can obviously try out when you take a photo. Just try different styles and different angles and different focus points and stuff like that. But in this shot, if you look at the rule of thirds, if it loads up, oh, I'm missing the rule of third lines there. Apologies for that. But there's not a lot of misalignment or anything that I need to correct in it. It's slightly, there's a skew line there, so slightly, it's not, the horizon line is not quite straight, so I had to correct for that. And the finished work is this one here. So you can see the difference, where it is much straighter, and I've adjusted for the perspective lines as well. And the one easy way to look at it, whether your photos line up properly, if you look at this corner, this bit here, and this bit here, you can see the difference between the color, the alignment in it. So obviously I try to make sure that that bit there lines up nicely there. So if you draw a straight line across, you will see that it will just line up really nicely. So that's one way to make sure that your perspectives are done correctly. But in this photo, I again didn't really need to do much. All I did was just increase the contrast in it because I really want to tease out the 3D element of this photo, the stonework, and make sure that the depth of it is showing really well. So I increased the contrast in it and also just saturated it slightly. And the next topic is construction material. So I really, I'm going to say this a lot. I really like this shot. I've been saying it for all the photos before as well. But you guys submitted some really, really good photos, and obviously these are my favorites. I really like this one. It's understated, but it's also just really, really cool. I love the monotone of the whole photo. It's just grays, and the shapes and the lines and the patterns that it forms is just really, really intriguing. And with this shot, if you were to take the photo dead center to it, like before where everything is flat, it wouldn't have worked as nicely as this one here. So this one here, although it's at that angle, it works really well because you're creating these lines here that just adds a bit of a dynamic element to it. What I wanted to correct in this photo though is that this bit here, the vertical lines are just not straight. Okay, so this bit here, it's just not, I'm struggling to, I'm trying to pick a nice way to put it, but it just doesn't suit my style. And also you get this little level bits here that just distracts the viewer's attention, so it doesn't flow nice. That's basically how I would put it. So kind of what I did to it was that, again, you can see here, it's just not straight at all, right? So kind of what I did here was that I just adjusted it. And what you notice then is that I also made sure that the framing of the shot lines up nicely. So the distance here to here is the same. And it just kind of works out really nicely. Just by coincidence, it just worked out really nicely. So, yeah. So kind of the finished shot, once it's post-edited, to me just looks really, really nice. And again, you can see the mile vignette that I added to it. So you can see that the edges here are darker and the center bit is brighter. Again, if you notice on this one here, this photo here looks kind of flat because this side here, if you train your eye from here left to right along this line here, it's just the same, it's all flat. Whereas here it goes from dark to bright to dark. So it gives a little bit more, it makes it a little bit more dynamic, and it makes it more exciting, in my opinion. So I always add some vignette to it, just kind of like do a subtle focus on it. The next shot is this one. I think this is also really, really cool. Again, this is one of the advice I also give to photographers is that don't just focus on things in the eye level. You want to look up, you want to look down, and figure out what's exciting. So obviously this photographer looked down, saw this really, really intriguing pattern of stonework here, And obviously, whoever that's taken this manhole cover out did not put it back in the right orientation, and so it's kind of opposite to the original stone foundation layout thing. I don't know what you call it again. But yeah, it creates a really, really nice view of it. But again, is that it's just not straight. Okay, this one's quite hard to do as well. You either need to stand quite high up to make sure that it's straight, or you do post-editing work to correct it in software. So again, with the rule of thirds, this is kind of how it looks like. And then with the correction on it, I managed to square it up. And I think it adds just a really nice element to it. So there is two ways to do this. You can either square it up really nicely, or you can adjust your photo in such a way that the square forms a trapezoid. So you're taking it at an angle, intentional angle, and you're getting a trapezoid. So something like that, you know. I can't draw this right. You know, just you need to make sure that if this is your center line, the left and right hand side is symmetrical. Then it works really well if you're doing like at an angle. But if you're not doing it at an angle and you're doing a straight on, you want to make it the square to be a proper square. Then yeah, you want to like adjust it in software, or find a way to position yourself when you take this photo to make sure that you're far away enough that there's no skewing introduced into your photo. And in here, I didn't really have to do much in terms of saturation. I didn't want to like pop it too much. But again, so like there's a slight vignette here. It's slightly dark on the outside. And again, just to draw your attention to the center of the photo. The next bit here is this photo. Very intriguing shot. The only thing I would say that could be improved on this is that if you look at the fencing here, it's just unfortunate that you took the photo a little bit too close to your subject, that you only got what looks like a fish spine or fishbone kind of structure. What you want to do is that you want to take a step back slightly, and you want to make sure that your photo includes at least a grid of it. So basically you want to, if I just draw it out slightly here, you want to have your fans framing in this manner, okay? And then obviously the center one here, and sorry, it just goes across there. So you want to keep that within your shot so that it shows like an overall finish element to it. So the fans becomes the bit that frames your shot as well. So in this case, there isn't one. You a bit too close, and so all you could see was just like a fishbone structure here. So it's just a bit unfortunate. The colors in here, you won't notice it just yet, but the colors in here are amazing. There's some blues in this corner here. There's some reds from the rust. There's some turquoise in here as well, and some yellow in here. So what I did in my shot was that I've upped the saturation on it, and it just really brings out the details as well. And it makes it really pop up really a lot, and I think that helps. It may not be as natural looking as it originally was, but I think it really creates a picture that's more dynamic and more popping. Yes, two of my favorite words, dynamic and popping. And on to the next topic, which is Streetscape. So in Streetscape, again, I'm always focusing on the horizon lines. I'm always focusing on the perspective lines, whether there's any skew involved or whether there's any rotation involved. This is quite a straight and simple one. Good composition, but it just needs a little bit of rotation. So make sure when you're taking a photo, your hand is steady, and obviously you correct for your angle. And again, some cameras, they have the option to turn on this angle monitoring thing. I don't know what you call it, but in my phone, if you were to, if you're holding the camera at a slight 5-degree angle thing, the camera would warn you that, hey, you know, your camera's not straight. Do you want to adjust it, or do you intentionally want to take it that way? So again, if you have that option, turn it on. It comes in really handy. So you don't have to actually correct anything in software. But in this shot here, the rule of thirds there, again, you can see this building lines up really nicely to this rule of third lines here. This market hall corner lines up to that as well. So it's really, really composed really well. You got 3 elements in here: the market hall, the background, that street, and then whatever that building is, the stonework. I think that's the cathedral bit. So yeah, I mean, it works really well there, and I think it just shows up nicely. And this is the edited photo. Again, all I did was just do some minor correction in rotation and also some adjustment on color and the contrast and brightness and stuff like that. So very minor adjustment, but you can kind of see that it looks, especially in the market hall area here, this area here looks much brighter. So if I highlight that bit there compared to this, it's just much brighter. And then it's just kind of, in my opinion anyway, it looks kind of more balanced, the lighting wise, color wise. This next shot here is a panoramic shot, and panoramic shots are, oh boy, notoriously difficult to edit. It's one of those photos where you take it and you kind of have to live with it, however it turns out. So I like panoramic shots, but I also hate it because it's just so hard to adjust or to fix it or to make it look any better than what it is. So this is one of those I wanted to include in here because it's a nice creative submission. I think it was the only person that submitted a panoramic shot, so I appreciate that. And actually, for this building, because it's such a long building, you do need a panoramic shot. The unfortunate thing is that obviously a panoramic shot introduces this curve, which is really hard to get rid of unless you're in software. And even in software, it doesn't really do that great a job in fixing it. So for this photo, the way I looked at it is that, well, what can I do that could possibly improve this photo? Well, I look at the elements in the left-hand side and the right-hand side, this bit here. And I don't think you necessarily need to show that because it doesn't really add much to the photo. Unfortunately, you do have this lamppost there, which you can't get rid of unless you Photoshop it away. But that's just a lot more work than necessary, so I wouldn't bother about that. But what I did in my edited work is to just crop it slightly up to there and also up to there. And also I turn it into a black and white shot just to kind of make it a little bit more artistic. So I hope you kind of enjoyed this treatment. Again, it's really hard to edit a panoramic shot. There's not a lot I can do with it. It's already straight. I didn't want to correct for the distortion in there. So what I did was just make it look slightly different by turning it into a black and white shot and adjusting the contrast on it slightly. This next shot is, again, a post-edited work, so it's already in black and white. I actually like it a lot, and what I found really interesting about the street scenes that you guys submitted for Stockport, the streets were really, really empty. I'm like, wow, okay. I know there's the whole coronavirus thing and, probably some lockdown and people staying home, but wow, was it really, really empty. So it's quite interesting that in this shot, you don't really see anybody at all. And you have the bollards there, which is pretty cool. And it adds some really nice element to it. So again, it's not a lot that I could do to improve this. I think it's a really good shot. What I did change, however, was to just change the crop slightly. And I kind of wanted to get rid of this minor guy. This one guy here that's on his own. I just wanted to just take him out the equation. So in my edited work, I kind of just narrowed the shot slightly. And also I just increased the contrast. In black and white shots, I kind of like to increase the contrast slightly. So there's a big pop between the whites and the blacks. It just kind of shows up really nicely. I think the original is pretty cool. It's got quite a neutral look to it. But I think the right-hand side has a little bit more dramatic flair to it. And also some vignettes along the side that just, again, draws your attention towards the center of the photo. And that's it. That is the last photo from all the favorites that I've chosen from all the photos that have been submitted to this photo competition. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation so far and you enjoyed me talking through all the various photos, the elements to it, and what works and what doesn't work and what could be improved in it. And I hope you learned something from the whole section as well. And just to quickly summarize before I move on to announcing the winner, just always make sure that you've got your horizons straight, your perspective lines are where you want it to be, whether you do want to have the converging points or you don't want it to be there. Obviously, just position yourself properly as you compose your shot. And again, it's like use the rule of thirds to help you guide where you want to position all your elements in your photos so that it all turns out really well. Needless to say, if you can get it right in your actual photo, then there's less work that you need to do in the post-editing work. So it really helps. And again, it helps to train your eye to make sure that you're looking for the right things in your photography. And just before I announce the winner, I wanted to run this interesting social experiment. Well, it's not really a social experiment, but I wanted to run this experiment with all of you. And basically, I'm going to show you the unedited gallery. So this gallery is going to be all the photos that's unedited. So all the favorite photos, not all the photos have been submitted. So just the favorites, the unedited ones. I want you to have a look at them. It's going to just run past the screen quite quickly. So if you need to pause, just pause the video. But just have a look at them, and I want you all to select your winning photo from the lot that's been shown. Okay, so go ahead. The video is running right now. The gallery is running. Have a look at the photos and select your favorite photo of the lot. Okay, you got your favorite photo? Fantastic. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to have a look at the edited gallery and again repeat the same experiment, and I want you to choose your favorite photo from the edited lot. Okay. So the reason behind that is that when I was trying to choose the winning photo, I was very much getting confused and also slightly biased towards the edited photo because I knew how the edited photo would look like. So I had to make sure that when I chose the winning photo, I was choosing it based on the original photo, based on all the various guidelines I mentioned about straight lines, whether the color balance is right, the lighting is right, and the composition is good, and whether the subject matter is interesting as well. Because there's a lot of photos that technically meet all the guidelines, but the subject matter was a little bit boring. So I chose the winning photo based on the best shot overall. But when I was looking at the edited gallery, my choice of the winning photo changed. Okay, so this is kind of weird, but when you look at the edited gallery and all the various other photos, it kind of really skews your, it skewed my idea of which one was the best photo. So just curious to know whether you had the same experience as well. And if you did, then it goes to show that some post-editing work can make a huge difference in what or how good a photo can turn out. Okay, so now that we're done with that experiment, let's go ahead and announce the winner for this photo competition after what seemed like ages. So apologies for all that. But here you go. This is the winning photo. Congratulations to the photographer who took this photo. I do not know who you are, but well done on this shot. Like I said, I really like the details in this. I think it's a very interesting subject matter. There's a lot of elements to it that's intriguing and interesting. So well shot. Just minor correction that you need to do to make it even better. But other than that, this is the one that took the prize. So I believe you have a voucher arranged by Mark. So congratulations, enjoy the voucher and go buy something fun with it. And before I go, you can switch off the video by now if you want to. But before I go, if you just please stay for a bit longer, and I just want to tell you a little bit about the Local Guides program. So what is Local Guides? Well, Local Guides is a program run by Google. It's basically centered around the Google Maps app. So if you ever use the Google Maps app, you know what is in there and what it's all about inside the app. So basically, you use Google Maps to navigate yourself in the real world if you get from point A to point B. But if you want to know what is at point A and point B, let's say you want to find a cafe in a new city that you're visiting, you can do a search for cafes in Google Maps and it brings you a long list of various cafes in there with different review ratings and photos and videos and whatnot. So all the information that you see in there, a majority of it, are being contributed by volunteers like myself. So basically, I'm a volunteer. I'm not working for Google. I'm just using up my own personal free time to basically write reviews for the places I've been to. I add photos, I add videos, And I also make sure that the business listing has the correct information in it, like for instance, the opening hours. So one thing that you may notice is that during this coronavirus, where you have different lockdowns and different opening hours, a lot of information that you see in Google Maps may not be accurate at all. So I've come across many times where I think the shop's open, where I go there, it's closed, unfortunately. So a lot of things that I do is that I go into the business listing in Google Maps and I submit a review saying that this opening hours is no longer valid. Please adjust it accordingly. So that's kind of one of the things that I do. Again, it's a fun program. I'm very much into my photography. I like eating. I like traveling. So it kind of works really well to suit my kind of my passions in my life. So whenever I go to a new city and I explore the place, I make a list of all the various places and cafes and restaurants I want to go to, and then I try to review all of them as much as possible and add some wonderful photos to that. So your photo walk, your street walk comes in really handy. It's into this program. So if you enjoy photography, do give a look at the Loco Guides program. You can go to maps.google.com/Loco Guides and find out more about the program. Again, it's all voluntary work. Nobody gets paid. You just do it in your own free time and do as however much you want to in it. And just to give you a glimpse of all the wonderful things that we do end up going, you've been seeing the photos that I've been putting in a video as I was talking about this program, showing you all the various meetups that we've organized as the Manchester Local Guides. Obviously, this is a program that runs globally, so there are local guides all around the world. There's also a wonderful, wonderful team in Manchester, and I used to be involved in it and used to organize a few of the meetups. So it's been a tremendous fun. I miss those guys a lot. But yes, so those photos, I hope you can see the fun that we've had as a group. We do focus a lot on eating. So it's not so much just about just going and review places, but we do treat it very much like a social. It's great fun. You get to meet lots of new people, especially people who share the same passion as you. So we love going. I love going to all these meetups and just end up talking about, hey, do you know where all the like best cafes are in Stockport? Because I've never been there and I want to give it a try. So things like that. And also, if you're very fortunate enough, you can get selected for the annual summit. So I've been very fortunate myself. I've been selected in the past 4 years to attend the Local Guide Summit in America. So I got to visit Mountain View, which is the location for the Google headquarters. And again, it's like some of the photos in here will show you the event there. And last year we had 150 people from all around the world attending, and we had so much fun. We were there sharing our passion for exploring and photography and foods. And obviously we were there to also provide feedback to Google, and it was such an amazing event. And so I would really, really encourage you all to give it a look and see whether it suits you. If it doesn't, that's fine. But if it does, reach out to some of the local guides in Manchester, and they will get you, involved in some of the meetups as well. So thank you so, so much for your time. I hope you do enjoy the effort I put into this video presentation. I hope it's not too long. And I really, really hope that you go away and you learn something new about photography. And you're not just there doing the same thing over and over again and just, taking the same photos all the time. But now, the next time you go out and take photos, you think about your composition, you think about how you want to make sure that your photos are lined up nicely and you got some really interesting photos in your shots. And also think about what you can do post-editing wise. If you need more information on what to do with post-editing and what sort of apps to use, give me a shout and I'll gladly let you know what the apps and software that I use. Thank you so much again, and see you when I see you. And have a great time, Manchester.